everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and welcome to week 12 of the Language Learning Mastermind group. And if you're new here, this is basically a series of videos to keep you accountable with your language learning, to keep you motivated. And of course, I talk about my own language learning progress, I talk about language learning in general, and kind of hopefully all of these things combined will help you to get more results, to learn some new things, and just keep you in that headspace of learning a language. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So I wanted to start off this week and talk about some of my Russian progress. And it's going well. I got my 7 hours for the week. But, looking back at the month of March, things were just very busy for me, just in real life. And I think that one big area that kind of really suffered was vocabulary. If I look at kind of my graphs just a little bit, things have fallen off a little bit. But, I'm still really happy with my progress, with learning new words, with learning vocabulary in general, with grammar, listening, all those things. But it is one of those things that I've just noticed. I know I can do way better at it. And I want to kind of make some slight adjustments moving forward. But as a whole with Russian, I like the progress. I just think that March was a little bit of a challenging month for me. And this I think is a good example of showing you the power of goals, right? Where if you can kind of see some of your progress graphed out, or you kind of keep track of these things, you can identify these kind of ideas, these problems, and then adjust accordingly, and versus just kind of thinking about it in the past and you don't have kind of a written record of how your progress is going. So basically just kind of coming into April, I kind of want to have a lot more of a focus on that, as things kind of just get a little bit less busy. But there was some challenges, obviously, but I'm happy with the overall progress, but I just know that I can do better. But as far as the week is concerned, I'm happy with the progress. I focused in on kind of all the core areas, and I'm going to just talk about each of them in just a little bit here. But overall, things are kind of going well. So, talking about each of the areas, so vocabulary, as I said, I really want to just kind of really focus in on learning new words, kind of really accelerating that in the coming month. And it's going well, progress is going nicely, but I have noticed that has fallen off just a little bit. And I want to do just kind of some small optimizations here and there to just kind of make that process a little bit better. But overall, that's going really well. And kind of moving on to this next area, reading, which kind of ties into vocabulary. I'm continuing to start to read in Russian. It's going really well. It is a bit of a challenge at first, right? Just because I'm still at that beginner stage with Russian. And so, at times it is very difficult, but it is coming along quite nicely. And, another thing with reading is that, of course, as you kind of read sentences, you're seeing grammar and context. So a lot of the grammar review that I have done, over the last 3 months or so, I'm seeing some of that in action as I read, right? I'm seeing certain verbs conjugated, just seeing grammar in action. And that's kind of nice because it's helping to reinforce it. Obviously, it's not perfect because, I don't necessarily know all of the endings by heart perfectly. There's just kind of a degree of uncertainty there, but kind of combining the grammar review that I've done, and then of course just seeing the grammar in context, I think is really helping. So overall, reading is going really nicely. Listening is also going great. Listening has kind of accelerated quite a bit. I've been using it a lot more in kind of just kind of off times when I'm multitasking, and I'm continuing to notice words in Russian as I listen. I'm getting comfortable with the sounds. I'm getting better at it. So I really am very happy with the listening progress. And then, of course, grammar. It's not been the major focus, but I have been reviewing some tables here and there, reviewing some kind of high level concepts that's kind of hopefully going to help overall with my reading and et cetera. So, kind of, this was all the major areas with my Russian. Like I said, I'm really happy about progress. It's, I hit my hour total for the week. I just know that I can do better. And I just think that things have been busy and it's been very challenging to kind of do Russian the way that I've wanted to do it for the month. I know I can do better. I can do things a little bit differently. And basically, I've kind of just identified some of those things. And that's just, I'm going to make some corrections going forward to hopefully improve that along the way. So, like I said, Russian is going well. Just a couple of changes here and there for the coming month, and I'm excited to see what comes next. And just doing some kind of quick reflecting on my Russian progress over the last 3 months, I'm really happy with it overall. I'm happy with the vocabulary progress, listening, grammar, reading. on an overall level, I'm happy with it. One thing though that I do know is I can be better at my Russian, right? I can do things a little bit more effectively. I can put a lot more time into Russian. The first kind of 3 months of this year have been really busy, especially March. And so I know that I can do more. I know I can be at a higher level than I am now. But I'm not going to kind of worry about the past. I'm going to move forward and just think about the next month, the next 3 months, etc. And so, the really big thing I want to focus in on is vocabulary acquisition, in particular, new words. And I think that I can be a little bit better at that. I think that at times I kind of focused a little bit too much on getting existing words down and I think something like the perfective and imperfective kind of trip me up at times with just kind of vocabulary acquisition and just kind of not moving on to new words. But you kind of realize these things, you learn from your mistakes, and you move forward. So I'm really going to focus in on that. I want to kind of focus in on some grammar, just review of some of the tables, some of the endings, a little bit better so that reading is a little bit more enjoyable, not to master it, but just to make that process a little bit smoother. And then just kind of continue along with what I've been doing. So overall, I think that I'm really happy with my Russian progress. I'm happy with my methods. There's some things I can there are some things I can do a little bit more effectively, but I think that some of the kind of the bigger challenges that I've faced have been outside of the language learning process, right? It's been from a time perspective with life being busy, and so I kind of see that, and hopefully I can do some things to adjust to kind of just make some more Russian progress overall. So that's just kind of a quick 3 month recap of my Russian. It's good to reflect about it. I kind of put these in the end of the videos normally, but I thought it would be a good place to talk about Russian and just reflecting on that progress here. But let me know how your progress has been over the first 3 months of the year, and share it in the comments below. I think it could be very helpful to people. But like I said, for me, my Russian's going really well, and I'm excited to see kind of what comes next. So this week I wanted to talk about difficult language learning material. And this is kind of an interesting topic because it's just going to happen as you learn a language, and especially as you go towards kind of very fun and compelling content like reading or listening to audio content, playing video games, something along those lines where things are going to be challenging and difficult. And I think that one of the biggest things that you can do just in your language learning is just kind of try to set your expectations accordingly, right? When you go into reading, expect things to be difficult, right? Or expect it to be difficult or challenging to use listening content in your language learning, especially if it's kind of real, authentic, compelling audio content. And I think that a lot of the times we think that it's going to just be this really easy process, or it's going to be great, it's going to be a ton of fun. But there is, ultimately in the end of the day, a big challenge to it, right? It is compelling audio content. And I think at times, if we don't kind of set our expectations to expect that challenge, we can be disappointed and lose motivation. So I think that the first thing when we're talking about difficult content is to set our expectations so that we're going to have a little bit smoother of a ride as we use that compelling content in our language learning. I think the second thing is to just take things slow. Realize that you're not fluent in the language, and so you're going to have to at points be a little bit slow in your process, whether that's reading or listening. It might require that you listen to the audio content more than once, or just kind of read a little bit slower, maybe read it 2 times over or 3 times over. But of course, as you get better at the language, as you learn more vocabulary, as you learn more grammar, it's going to be easier. You're going to enjoy things a lot more. But realize that there's just going to probably be a slowness to it. So be very patient and take your time with some of this compelling content. But I think too, it's just worth just persevering and pushing through the struggle of some of this difficult content. When you're first playing a video game in a foreign language, it's just going to be difficult, right? Everything is incredibly foreign to you. There's a lot coming at you at once, and it can be very overwhelming. It can be very discouraging. And it can cause you to lose motivation and ultimately quit. But if you kind of stick with it, slowly but surely, you will get more comfortable with the user interface. You will slowly get more comfortable with the words and just kind of the audio coming at you. And of course, you're going to learn some of these words. You're going to get more comfortable with the listening. You're going to get better at the language. And then you're going to slowly start enjoying the process more and more. You're going to be getting more out of it from a learning perspective. So I think that, that example with the video games and foreign languages is a great kind of example of you having to persevere to really get the most out of that content. Of course, this is something similar with reading, where it's going to be very challenging at first, and you have to kind of persevere and push through. Same with just kind of podcasts or Netflix shows. You just really need to persevere and push through. So I think that that's also another really important aspect with difficult content. And I think that you shouldn't let the difficult content intimidate you from at least trying it out or starting to try to use it, right? I think there's sometimes a hesitation to want to reach a certain level before kind of trying to use it, right? Or thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. I need to learn more words. I need to stick to the beginner app. And sometimes that is what you need to do. But other times, I think it's worthwhile just to try to start watching Netflix shows in a foreign language. Start trying to use video games or try to start reading. It's going to be difficult. Maybe it's way too challenging. But ultimately, I think sometimes you just kind of have to go for it and just see what happens. And you might be surprised in the end of the day. And so, just to kind of give an example, so I just started reading in Russian. And, when I first started reading, before I even kind of jumped into things, I kind of had the expectation that things were going to be difficult. And of course, it is a little bit challenging, right? There are words that I just do not know. And it is kind of also difficult because there's grammar just being thrown at me, and Russian grammar can be very intimidating. But I've set my expectations accordingly. And I think that just kind of having that mental preparation ahead of time has kind of helped the process a little bit. And it is a struggle, but I am learning things. And I know that if I stick with it, if I continue to just keep getting better at the language, reading is going to progressively get easier and easier, more fun, and I'm going to get more out of it. So that's just kind of like a practical example with my language learning right now, or even with audio content. For the most part, the Russian audio that I listen to is a wall of sound, but I am picking up words here and there. I am picking up some grammar here and there, and you just kind of have to stick with it. So I think that that's just kind of important to note. And if you're open to it, leave a comment below about how you're facing difficult language learning content right now. What's something that you're using, and how is that process going? I think that it's worth sharing and just talking about, because I think that with difficult content, it's just so easy to want to quit. It's just so easy to um, be intimidated and just want to move to something easier. But I think that sometimes, if you just persevere and stick with that difficult content, and you just take things slow and you just keep at it, you'll be rewarded in the end of the day. And before kind of moving on to the next area, I want to talk about just kind of a little bit of motivation, just to hopefully kind of give you some motivation, give you some confidence, or just a boost in your overall language learning. And I just want to say that too, if you're watching these videos, or you've kind of gotten this far in the video, I just want to let you know that I think that I don't, obviously don't know everyone's individual situations. I see some of the comments in my videos. Some of you comment quite often, and I can see your language learning progress. And of course, I only know so much about what's going on, but I will say that if you're putting in that time with language learning, right, every week, and maybe you're struggling, maybe you fall off ever so often, but you're putting in that time, you're trying to get better, you're trying to think of different methods, right? That's awesome, and you're on the right path, right? I might not know exactly what's going on in your language learning, but I just want to just kind of tell you that hey, you're on the right track, and you're doing great, right? Because while there might be things that you're doing that are inefficient, there might be things that you're doing that could be better. The fact that you're putting in that time into language learning, you're trying to improve, you're trying to think for yourself and get better at the language is something that's great. And I just want to say you're doing awesome with that, whoever you are. And I think that it's important just to kind of try to get that confidence, right? Because sometimes, when we're learning a language, there's not another person out there telling you like, "Hey, you're doing such a great job. Wow, you know so much more about language learning, right?" Maybe you have someone in your life that can kind of give you that those words of affirmation. Maybe those words of affirmation aren't important. They aren't important to some people, but I would just kind of give those to you, right? Because the fact that you're putting in that time, you're watching these videos, you're trying to improve, you're just investing the time, it will correlate to more language learning progress overall. So I think that it's just important to remember that, hey, give yourself a pat on the back. And, like I said, for me, if you're putting in that time and doing all these things, right, you're doing great. You're on the right track. Um, just keep going. And it's going to be difficult at times where you just feel like you're in a plateau. It's just a struggle, right? A lot of times people don't want to talk about that, right? Because it doesn't sell, right? It's not an appealing topic. That there's this level of adversity with language learning. There is just it takes so long. It's a challenge. But what I will say is that I think that it's great that you're putting in that time and that action in the language learning, right? When I think of the biggest thing that should kind of give you some confidence or happiness with your language learning, it's that you're putting in that energy and effort, right? Because that's ultimately gonna, get you to that next level, right? You might be doing methods that are ineffective. You might be, um, making mistakes here and there, but the fact that you're putting in that energy and that effort into language learning is ultimately, I think, going to pay off. So keep at it. I just wanted to kind of do a little bit of a motivational thing here and there, just because I think that sometimes you just kind of don't get it right from other people, and it can be tough at times. So remember, be kind to yourself with language learning. Just the sheer fact that you're trying to do this and you're putting in all that time and energy, I think is something that you should be proud of yourself, right? And kind of give yourself um, those compliments. So I think that's just really important in the end of the day. So I wanted to kind of now transition into our weekly reflection and ask you, how has your language learning been going? What did you do right this week, and what did you do wrong? And I think it's important to just reflect ever so often, every week, every month, just to try to improve your language learning overall. Just 5 minutes or 10 minutes here and there can really help you to take inventory about how things are going. And then, of course, if you identify problems and then just think of solutions or ways to do things better, that's going to add up over the course of many weeks. You're going to make more progress in your language learning. You're probably going to have more fun. So I think it's important to kind of do this. And the way I would approach it is just think of three things that you did really well this week, or it could be five. It doesn't really matter. But for me, for example, I'm really happy that I got my hour total in this week. I'm really happy about my continued reading progress and that I'm accelerating my listening. But three things that I didn't do so well, which is what you should do next, would be, for example, I can be a lot better at my new word acquisition in Russian, or I can fit in some Russian here and there more so than I am doing now. I can throw in some more or put in some more time into my Russian. So I think the key here is just to think of three things that you've done really well and three things that maybe aren't going so well. And of course, when you kind of have identified maybe some things that aren't going so well, maybe you're losing motivation, maybe certain activities that you're doing aren't very effective, try to come up with solutions on those problems, right? Try to think of ways that you can be a lot more effective. Or if you don't really know the answer, go seek out resources or advice on how to improve that thing that you're struggling with, whether it's motivation, vocabulary acquisition, speaking, etc. So I think it's worthwhile to just kind of do this reflection each and every week or every month or just ever so often, such that you can kind of look at your language learning and see how it's going and then improve it moving forward. And then I think another thing to do is, as we have kind of approached this 3 month mark in our language learning, I would ask you, how has your language learning gone for the entire year over the kind of course of these 3 months? And I think it's good to think about your language learning not just in the last week or the next day or that kind of time frame, that one day, that 1 week time frame, but just over the course of many months, these 3 month periods. So think about that. How has your language learning been going overall over this kind of longer time frame? I think that sometimes it's really easy to kind of set goals on a daily time frame, in a weekly time frame, in a yearly time frame, but we forget about those kind of steps along the way, right? Those 3 month marks, those 6 month marks, things like that, where really ultimately those kind of sections of time are, is significant in terms of getting to that longer term year goal or multi-year goal. So I think it's important to think about language learning in that longer time horizon. And so, how has your language learning gone overall? So, for the last 3 months, for example, I've gone from not knowing any Russian to having a nice kind of small foundation in the language, right? I'm typing super quickly in Russian. I know a bunch of words. I know some grammar now. So sometimes it's really easy to get hard on yourself, and you think, I could just be so much better than I am right now, or oh, I didn't do these methods over the last month, and thus I wasted all this time, right? Yes, I think that doing that analysis can be helpful, but it's also good to just see like, okay, what was I doing back in January, and now look at what I'm doing here in March. That's way more effective in terms of a method or what I know from a knowledge perspective. I think it's good to just think about that, and a lot of times too, it can give you this motivation and confidence because you see how far you've come with your language learning, and that should give you motivation. That should make you kind of feel good that you've made all this progress. And of course, you can also see some things that you weren't doing so great, and maybe that's not the most positive thing out there, but you can take that knowledge, you can take that reflection that you do over the last kind of just looking at the last 3 months and then apply it to the next 3 months going forward. And that's going to be really helpful because when we do this process 3 months from now, or 6 months from now or whatever, you're going to thank yourself because you looked at what you did right, you looked at what you did wrong, and hopefully with that information you can take it to make more progress in your language learning. So I think that's really key. Don't just think about reflections from just the course of a day or a week, right? Look at the longer term trend of how your motivation has been going, right? Ask yourself all the core questions with language learning. How is vocabulary acquisition going? How is speaking? How is listening? How is your motivation? Are you having fun? How was your motivation 2 months ago? What is it like now? How about vocabulary acquisition, right? Hit all of those kind of core language learning areas, right? Grammar, vocabulary, listening, having fun, motivation, discipline, things like that, and just kind of think about how it went over the last 3 months and where you are today, or how have you improved? What could you do better? Right? Just thinking about all these little areas and just taking 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just a small amount of time, and then kind of just trying to come up with a game plan. And ideally, if you write it down or kind of just keep track of some of these changes that you want to do, I think that it will really help you a lot in the end of the day. So just with our weekly reflection, right? It's good to, of course, review the week and the maybe yesterday or what you want to do tomorrow, but also think about that longer term time horizon. I think that if you do that, you'll see some gains in your language learning overall. And before concluding, I just wanted to talk about something really quickly and just ask you all a question. And if you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to ask, why do you watch language learning content? And I might make a video about this just kind of as a standalone. But I really want to know in kind of what motivates you or what keeps you watching language learning content. For example, this channel or other channels out there, are you there for the advice? Are you there for the blogging aspect of things? Maybe it's just kind of infotainment, or someone's very entertaining. Maybe it's just to kind of keep you motivated and keep you on track. I think that the reasons for people watching language learning content is very different. But I'm just curious as to why you, for example, watch language learning content. Maybe it's the personality or the person that you're listening to. You really like them. They're likable or something. So I just would be very curious, just because I'm thinking about some new ideas and exploring some different areas with language learning. Hopefully that will be helpful. But I want to just see what everyone's kind of motivations are for watching this content. And obviously, just a couple of comments, right? It's not enough data points to make a conclusion, but I would just be very curious to know what you think if you're open to it and leaving a comment below. If you've gotten this far in the video, I would assume that you probably watch these reflections in full, or you like a lot of my videos, which I really appreciate. And so obviously, I would love to hear your opinion, just because if you've gotten this far, you're probably at least kind of somewhat into my content. So just let me know, what you think and what really motivates you, what you would like to see in the language learning world. I just try to keep those things in the back of my mind just to try to think about how to create the best content moving forward, whether that's kind of the long form stuff like with the recent motivation video that I did, talking about video games and language learning. I just want to try to bring the best content moving forward, stuff that's going to be helpful or entertaining or whatever it is. And obviously, like I said, if you've gotten this far, you probably watch a lot of my content, and so I definitely want to know what you think with all that stuff, right? And hopefully kind of fill the gaps of where maybe content is missing out there in the language learning world of YouTube. So thanks for kind of just hearing me rant about that a little bit. I might make another standalone video on that subject, but I'd be curious to know what you think. Leave a comment if you're open to it, and hopefully, if there's kind of a connection with kind of what I'm looking to do and what I think might be helpful, maybe that content will, see the light of day. So we'll see. And that's what I had for the week. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below if you're open to it. Let me know how your language learning is going and what you plan on doing for the coming weeks. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care.